So our winner in fiction for her story, Music in the Fields, is Mary Bargdill, who's a senior here at the University of Wyoming. She will graduate this May with a bachelor's degree in English, minors in creative and professional writing. And in the fall, she'll pursue an MFA in creative writing and fiction at the University of New Hampshire. I'm going to give you your book first.
So the title of my piece is Music in the Fields. Faith shook her little butt back and forth to the beat of the song as the sun beat down on her shoulders. From the patio, an orange extension cord wrapped like a snake across the hot cement to the boombox perched on a picnic table. The speakers were cranked full blast. At age 10, she was too young to understand most of the words, but it didn't matter. The music broke up the monotony of yard work. Lifting the hoe over another vine, she aimed at a silkweed, careful to avoid the white sign with black painted lettering that read, "For you puppies." "Hey Faith, it's time to eat." Faith glanced up from her task, using one hand to shield her eyes from the glare, her blonde bangs in the way. "Okay." Robert turned off the cassette player before a playful nip on his sneaker caught his attention. "Hey, cut that out, you little brat." Unable to resist, Robert bent down and picked up the little fur ball at his feet. Within seconds, he was surrounded by 4 of them. "I can't believe how big they're getting. They're so fat." "I know. Dad's been saying all week that they've got to get rid of them," Faith said. "He says that they eat more than the pigs." The puppy's mother greeted Robert and Faith with a wagging tail. "Don't worry, Mama," Faith said, scratching her Cocker Spaniel's head. "You guys will get lunch as soon as we're done with ours." The screen door slammed behind the brother and sister as they entered the house. The linoleum cooled the bottom of Faith's feet as she padded to the sink to wash her hands and get a drink of water. At the table, Dad explained which one of the barn gates needed fixed and tried to determine how much time they had until the field corn would be ready for harvest. Reaching for another slice of bread, he changed the subject and asked Robert about the fire run he went on last night. Robert sat up straighter as he pulled on a dusty pioneer hat over his dark hair. It was a 2-car crash on Sloan's Road south of the highway. Phyllis Jones ran the stop signal and slammed into Fred McCoy. "We had to cut her out with the jaws of life. It was bad." Mom listened to the details of the accident without saying a word. Faith knew Phyllis was a friend of her mom's from church, and that she would be included in the prayers that evening. "Is she going to be all right?" Faith asked, reaching for the plate of sliced tomatoes. Robert shrugged his shoulders. "Looks like." He downed his iced tea and reached for the pitcher to refill his glass. Faith stopped eating her potato salad when she heard the sound of tires on gravel. "Someone here for a puppy?" Faith put down her fork and walked to the front door. It was a father with 2 little boys, wanting to look at the puppies. The brothers had already claimed a spot on the front lawn, laughing while the balls of brown and black fur surrounded them, yapping and jumping. After a few minutes of looking over the stock, the father asked his sons which one they wanted. Unanimously, they picked out the fattest one, a female that was mostly black with brown around her eyes. When Faith returned to the kitchen, everyone else was done with their meal. She sat down to her plate of potato salad and cold meat sandwich. "Go ahead and finish eating," Robert said. "I'll feed the dogs." The sun was just setting when Faith discovered her mom on the back porch. The boombox had been removed and now sat in a corner in her room. Faith's mom darned one of her dad's worn work socks with thick gray thread. Faith flopped down on the glider beside her mom, munching on an apple. On the little table beside her mom sat a glass of lemonade and her blue rosary. Mom had been praying for a friend in a car accident. Faith looked over the golden tips of corn stalks towards the bar across the street and tilted her head to better hear what her mother called sin music. It sounded like Bob Seger's Turn the Page. "There they go again, playing that old crap," Mom said. Faith took another bite out of her apple and pushed her feet in rhythm with her mom's pace. She noticed her mom gently kicked in tune with the music from across the street. The words were muffled, but the beat came through, bluesy and sad, the kind of music her family didn't listen to much on their little farm. Her mom hated rock and roll, couldn't stand Elvis. Her dad liked country. Must be a full house tonight, her mother said, stabbing her needle into the sock. They're always packed on Saturdays. It's the new deck they added this year on the back patio. Now they have room for an outdoor stage and dance floor, Faith said. Here I am on the road again. There I am on the stage. Here I go, playing star again. There I go, turn the page. As the song drifted to a close, Faith looked around the yard and for the first time noticed the quiet with the background of chirping crickets. That's odd. Why aren't the puppies barking? Her mother stopped pushing the glider, but she didn't look up from her sewing. She pushed the large needle stiffly through the sock, yanking hard until the thread followed, and didn't say a word. Faith forced herself to swallow the last bite of her apple. Walking to the front of the house, she called to the puppies, but they didn't respond. No barking, no yapping. The yard was silent, the garage empty. Running inside, Faith saw Robert sprawled out on the couch watching television. Where are the puppies? What? Robert asked. The puppies, where are they? I don't know. They're not around anywhere, Faith said. They're not in the yard or the garage. Let's look out by the barns. They might be out there, Robert said, pushing himself off the couch and heading for the front door. They looked in the main white barn. They looked in the smaller side barn, the feed shed, the lean-to, the machine shed. Out of desperation, the siblings looked in the last place they wanted to, and the incinerator behind the small barn. They stood in weeds up to their knees, facing the metal barrel resting on its side. When the incinerator was on, it meant sick or injured livestock had been put down and were inside, slowly turning to ash. Their parents had explained that this was a necessity of farming, a side the city folk didn't have to see, didn't have to deal with. Not all animals grow to maturity, Dad had said. They don't always make it to market. Robert and Faith stood silently, staring at the rusting beast that quietly, effortlessly, churned out pale gray smoke from its stack. Robert reached for the metal rod that was used to open the incinerator's scorching door. Shoving the twisted hook under the door handle, he shoved down with all his weight, forcing the door up. With a sigh, the door gave way and opened, revealing the recently placed bodies. The 4 puppies were cuddled closely together as if asleep. Their black and brown fur blended in, with the incinerator's interior nearly disappearing. The mama was on her side with one paw stretched out in front, as if trying to protect them one last time. Dry blood caked around her mouth where she had been knocked in the head. The 2 stared in silent horror at their pets, not knowing what to say. Without a word, Robert lowered the metal door. They turned and walked away. The band played late into the night, pushing the opening chords of Hotel California past the sheer white curtains and opened the window into Faith's silent room. It was the only comfort Faith had. When she had confronted her father earlier that evening, tears streaming down her face, and asked why he had killed the puppies, he had simply said they were getting too big and cost too much to keep. But why the mama, she had asked, why kill her? Because she wasn't fixed and wasn't a working farm dog. She would have had more pups. The pale pink walls looked almost silver in the moonlight, and the purple shag carpet disappeared into the shadows. Faith lay silently on the antique bed. She was all cried out and eventually drifted off to sleep. Faith woke to the sound of her father's yell and her mother's running footsteps. The bar across the street was on fire, he yelled, running up to her room and pounding on her door. Wake up! Dazed, Faith sat up and stared at the bright orange and red lights flickering on her bedroom walls. Stumbling out of bed, she fell to her knees in front of the window that overlooked a field towards the bar across the street from the house. The building was engulfed in flames. The topmost flames reached high enough to singe the leaves of nearby trees that arched over the building. As the dried leaves caught fire, they snapped and sizzled before turning to ash and drifting to the ground. Fire trucks were parked along the side of the road and in the bar's parking lot. Red and white lights from the trucks strobed with crazy brightness through the darkness, highlighting firemen frantically trying to douse the flames. The family stood silently a little bit longer, long enough to see one of the walls in the old building crumble after a loud crash. The mother gasped, the father swore, and Faith screamed. When Faith woke the next morning, it was to the sound of absolute silence. As she tiptoed down the stairs, Faith strained to hear any noise, but there wasn't any. The radio, usually delivering the weather report, was off, the coffee wasn't percolating, and the stove was still cold. No bacon or eggs fried in her mother's huge cast iron skillet. Everything was as it had been the night before when they went to bed. Glancing out the window, Faith saw her father walking out to the barn to do the morning chores and feed the livestock. On the patio glider, she found their mother sitting motionless, with the blue rosary clasped tightly in her hand, her feet no longer pushing to the beat of music. Instead, she stared at the charred remains of the bar across the road as if fixated. "Where's Robert?" Faith asked. Her mother just looked down at her feet.